Hey everybody, it is You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions. And this week my first question comes from Samuel Smith, who says, Steve, how did your parents react to you telling them that you were an atheist? My folks weren't bothered, but then again I live in the UK where religion is slowly fading into irrelevance in comparison to the USA. I know a guy I work with got slapped by his mother and she didn't talk to him for weeks when he told her he wasn't going to church and that God doesn't exist. Did you suffer something similar? I haven't suffered anything like that. I think a year or two ago, maybe a bit longer, an aunt of mine grumbled about me being an atheist a little bit, but not to me, to someone else in my family. I haven't heard anything personally negative about my atheism. I haven't been hassled by it. I certainly haven't been slapped over it by anyone from my family or anybody else for that matter. Part of the reason for that may be that I didn't make a big deal about it at the time. When I first started identifying as an atheist, I was almost 30 years old, and I just sort of said that I was one. And I had a blog at the time, and I wrote about it there. And then, from the day I first started my YouTube channel, I was open and public about being an atheist. So I didn't make a big deal about it. There wasn't like a family meeting where I sat everyone down and said, okay, guys, I have something to tell you. I'm an atheist. I didn't present it as anything that I wanted or needed their approval for because I was a grown-up. I wasn't living at home. I didn't need their approval for it. So I didn't act like I did. And it just wasn't that big of a deal. And I know not everybody has had that experience. I know it really, really bums me out sometimes to read the experiences that other atheists have had being estranged from their families or fearing that they'll lose their jobs or being estranged from spouses even. It's rough sometimes. It's really rough for people. And fortunately for myself, I never had anything like that to contend with. And part of the reason I think is probably that my family, at least my dad's family, my dad's side of the family, is just pretty kind of laid back and indifferent to that stuff. None of the rest of them, to my knowledge, are atheists, but they're just kind of chilled out about it. They just don't really care. Religion is not a huge part of most of their lives, but I just didn't make a big deal about it, and so they didn't make a big deal about it. Solar Dragon 007. Hey Steve, I recently attended a friend's birthday party and found myself in an awkward situation. My friend's family is Christian, and so they prayed before we started eating. Everyone bowed their heads down and closed their eyes, but me. I'm not a Christian, so I didn't feel the need to bow my head. At the same time, I wonder if I offended anyone. Have you ever been in a similar situation? If so, what do you usually do? Oh, I'm in a similar situation fairly regularly. My wife's family is very Christian and very religious, and they say grace before they eat meals. And I usually just sit there quietly, and I don't close my eyes, but I just kind of bow my head like this. And my wife is always with me, and she does the same thing. We just kind of sit there respectfully, wait till it's over. It's not that hard. I mean, when you're in someone else's house or you're at an event that someone else has invited you to and you're a guest, whether you're an atheist or whatever, I think it's polite to, you don't have to participate in their custom, but, just be respectful, just sit there and let them pray, let them get it over with, and then it's all good. Sir Christopher McFarlane, are you disillusioned with the atheist community after all the reactionary elements, such as anti-feminists, started showing up? When was the turning point? Disillusioned, I would also add dismayed, but not discouraged. I would want to draw that distinction. The reactionary elements, the anti-feminist elements, the really, really angry, borderline bigoted, sometimes frankly bigoted, anti-religious statements, anti-Islamic, anti-Christian, where it crosses the line from criticizing the religion and criticizing the fact claims and the tenets of the faith and goes into just hate speech directed at the people who believe in that faith. That happens all too often. I'm dismayed by that. I'm disillusioned by that. The attitude that is displayed toward women, toward women's issues, toward feminism by several very prominent members of our atheist community, especially here on YouTube. I do not want that to be the face of us. I do not want that to be the message that we send out, that we broadcast to the world and tell them that this is who we are as a group. We're woman haters. and we're haters of people who have faith. I feel sometimes that is the message that we send. And I can't really blame people from outside our bubble who take a momentary peek inside the bubble, who kind of cast a glance for a moment in our direction and see, oh, look at those atheists. It's mostly just a bunch of angry, woman-hating men, and they don't seem like they're any better than the religious people that they claim to be contending with. I don't find it discouraging, though. I find it motivating, because I don't want that to be us. I don't want those voices, those angry, anti-feminist, hatefully anti-religious voices to be the face of us, to be the voice of us. So it encourages me to continue to do what I do, and to continually ask more of myself personally when I am arguing against a religious point, to try my best to not direct it at religious people, to not say things that could be construed as hateful toward religious people or encouraging hateful attitudes toward religious people. It drives me when I look for other fellow atheists on YouTube to give shout outs on this show, or just to watch for my own enjoyment, or to recommend to other people, to find other voices like that who are reasonable, who are compassionate, who are open-minded, who are progressive in their thinking about religious pluralism and about women's issues and gender equality and LGBT issues and all of these other things. It's encouraging to me. It pushes me to do better, to ask more for myself, and to look for other people who are doing better as well, and to do whatever small part I can to try and lift those people up to greater prominence. Because I do not want the angry anti-feminists and the angry anti-religionists to be the voice of our movement anymore. Jarb 2104. How would you approach to someone that is close to you, is a believer, and you see that their lives are being affected in a negative way by their beliefs? For example, they don't take precautions while going out on the street, or they don't go to the doctor to take proper medicine. If they were not close, it wouldn't be much of a problem, and I would just let them be after trying to advise them. But since they are close, I'm concerned that they might end in a really bad situation that could be avoided. Honestly, if we're talking about adults here who are in their right mind, there's nothing you can do other than to just sincerely share your concerns with the person. I mean, it's possible for a person to have nutty beliefs and still not be clinically insane. Like, it's not like you couldn't just get a psychological commitment, a psychiatric commitment for this person and say, oh, it's for your own good. We're going to take you someplace where they'll take care of you. The only thing you can do is to really, really honestly and sincerely tell the person what you're worried about and why you're worried about it, and what you think they're doing that they shouldn't do. I mean, and beyond that, you have no rights. I mean, you have no power. It's their decision, and all you can do is influence them. I mean, if it's someone you really care about, and you really have a fear that they're going to do something that would hurt themselves, you know, if they're sick and they're not going to the doctor, or they're behaving recklessly because they have some kind of religious belief that they're going to be okay, or that it's all part of God's plan, or whatever, all you can do is try to influence them. That's it. I mean, if they're doing something that puts them in imminent danger, I would say you can intervene, and you can, like, if someone's about to cross the street and you see a car coming about to hit them, of course you have to grab them by the arm and yank their fucking asses back onto the sidewalk. But short of something like that, where it seems like they're putting themselves in immediate or imminent danger, I don't think there's anything you can do. The Sector M. Hey Steve, I have a question about becoming a YouTuber. At what point did you have enough subscribers and or income from monetizing videos to become a YouTuber full time? I love the process of creating videos, from the raw idea to the finished execution, and would love to become a YouTuber at some point, but I hear it's incredibly hard to break into the field. I'm just curious about the critical mass it takes to go professional. What are your thoughts? Thanks. For me, it took about 2 years of solid grind to get to the point where I was making enough per month that I could consider it even a halfway shitty part-time job. I mean, you're right. It is. You have heard correctly, at least in my experience. It is tough to break through. It is tough to get to the point where you're making enough from Google earnings from monetizing videos to be able to make it. And honestly, I would not be doing nearly as well as I am doing. And I'm just making a living at this point. I'm not getting rich by any stretch of the imagination, but I wouldn't even be making a living if it weren't for my Patreon account. But yeah, it takes some time. It takes some time, and for me it was about 2 years before I was at a place with, at least with the ad revenue, where I felt like it was actually becoming worth it financially to really throw myself into it full time. And I couldn't even have done that if it weren't for my wife. Ashley was working full time, had a really good job, could afford to pay all our bills. I had just finished with my time in college, so without her supporting us, I could not have done it either. But yeah, in my experience, it took about 2 years. Your mileage may vary. Tom Dudziak. Hey Steve, 7 years ago when we got married, my wife was only somewhat religious. Now she's becoming more religious and trying to steer our kids in that direction. Any suggestions on how to help ensure that they grow up using rationality and skepticism? As an atheist, I want to make sure they think long and hard before subscribing to any belief in supernatural beings and abilities. I'm not a parent, so I can't speak from personal experience on this, but I have given similar advice to what I'm about to say in the past, and people who do have children have told me that it seemed like good advice to them. So here we go. If I were you, I would respond to my child's questions about God or religion or the nature of life in the universe. I would respond to those questions by answering honestly from my perspective as an atheist, but I would make sure that I was offering them as my opinion. I would not tell my children my opinions as an atheist as though they were facts. If my child asked me if there was a God, regardless of what my wife had told the child, I would say, honestly, I don't think there is one. I wouldn't say there isn't one, and you shouldn't think there is one. I would say, well, I just don't think there is. And I would answer the questions like that. I would share my point of view as my point of view. And I would also encourage the other parent who may be more religious to do the same thing. Now that might be tricky because religious folks don't like to share their religion as a matter of opinion. They think of it and like to share it as a matter of fact. But I would encourage them and ask them to do the same thing with their religion that I am doing with my irreligion, and share it as just a point of view, and to let the kid make up his or her own mind. And it can be tricky because it's a complex question, and sometimes kids do much better with black and white than they do with shades of gray. They're still sort of growing and maturing, and they're not capable of perceiving and comprehending these complex concepts. But the best way to raise a kid so that he or she can make up their own mind about these questions is to just offer them points of view, and don't nail anything down. Don't say, well, there definitely is a God and here's what he wants you to do, or there definitely isn't a God. Just offer your opinion. Just offer your point of view and see how that works. NV. I have a short question, Steve. A year ago, my relationship with my best friend / roommate started changing. She came home drunk or really intoxicated most nights and had her laptop, phone, and wallet stolen or lost in the city, and I would have to lie to her dad about it. She began cheating on her boyfriend and would ask me about it and have me cover for her. She was drinking most nights, and I didn't approve because she began blacking out and either destroying our apartment or yelling at me, or even attempted suicide a few times, and I had to be basically her only caretaker at some times. We've known each other since we were teenagers, and we were like sisters before this happened, so it all still hurts. It's been a year. I know I tolerate bad treatment like it's nothing, and I think it's good that she is out of my life. The problem is, I still miss her, and I want to have her back as my best friend on occasion. My question is, how can I get over this without just getting angrier and angrier at her? Will my heart ever get back to normal? How? Time. It just takes time. I'm not someone who believes that old cliche, time heals all wounds, is 100% true. I don't think it does heal all wounds all the time, but I think it's one of the best healers of wounds. I think it has a pretty good track record as far as wound healing goes. It just takes time. You just have to get further away from it and start to get over it. And I think it might help if you just maybe privately to yourself. You don't even have to reach out to your former friend. Just privately to yourself. Just forgive them for whatever they did. and just move on with it. Just say, you know what, it's water under the bridge. I don't care about it anymore. I'm not going to hold it against her. I'm not going to be angry about it. I'm not going to think about it. And I'm just going to let it go. And that is easier said than done. I mean, it seems like it's relatively easy for me to let stuff go. When I compare myself to other people that I know, it seems like I have an easier time just letting shit go than other people do. So it maybe is a little presumptuous of me to say that to you, but it works for me. If you can manage to let it go, let it go. Just, it's in the past, it's done. It's sad and terrible that this person who was your close friend for so many years is out of your life now. But as you say, it seems like that's for the best, at least right now. I would just come to peace with that and forgive her for whatever she did to you, for whatever her behavior was that hurt you personally. Just say water under the bridge and just let it go and just let her get on with her life. Hopefully she'll be okay, but that's not your responsibility. Let her get on with her life, and you do your best to get on with your life. And again, this is all easier said than done. And I don't want to tell you that it's just a matter of deciding to do it and then do it. I mean, it's probably going to be a lot harder than that, and you probably know already that it's a lot harder than that. But I think that should be your goal, to let it go and to move on with your life. And I think the biggest thing is it'll just take time. It'll be hard at first, but it'll get easier as it goes along, hopefully. And good luck. The Critical Critic Show. Hey Steve, what do you think of the Iraq and Afghanistan war? The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan are great examples of things about which my opinion has changed drastically with the benefit of hindsight. At the time, I was sort of a reluctant supporter of both wars. When the wars started, and sort of still in the aftermath, the wake of 9/11, I supported both wars, never enthusiastically. I never was like, yeah, we definitely have to go to war. But I was not a protester of them. Now I don't think we should have gone into either country. Now I'm at the place where I feel neither war was necessary. I do not think that the way to deal with terrorism, and terrorism was the pretext for both wars, and I don't think that the way we deal with terrorism is by invading other people's countries. I think terrorism is a criminal problem, and I think it should be dealt with through police actions. I think terrorists should be found and arrested and brought to justice, or killed if absolutely necessary, but preferably brought to justice, put on trial, and sent to prison if convicted, like criminals. I think that's what should be done with them. I don't think you solve the problem of terrorism by sending your army into someone else's country or by bombing the shit out of someone else's country. I think you do it in the short term, by finding and capturing and bringing to justice the terrorists, and in the long term, by addressing the issues that drive many people to radical religion and to terrorism, through education, through diplomacy, through international cooperation, through addressing the issues in a country's culture and society that would leave people feeling so disenfranchised, so disempowered, so ignored that they would feel compelled to turn to terrorism as their only alternative, which we know is what happens usually, whether they're going into a radical religious ideological form of terrorism or whether they're going into a more overtly political form of terrorism. It's feeling disenfranchised and feeling helpless and feeling like you have no other alternative. So addressing those sorts of things is the long-term solution. Finding and capturing terrorists is the short-term solution. I don't think either of those solutions should include bombing someone else's country back into the Stone Age or sending your army into someone else's country. I just think both wars were a mistake and unnecessary. And I don't know exactly when it was that I reached that point. I don't think there was a moment when I suddenly sort of like a light switch went on and I said, oh shit, I'm against both wars. It just kind of happened gradually. It wasn't a sudden thing at all. Also not a sudden thing, although you would think that it would be from the title, is the next segment of the video, which of course, as we all know, is called
The Lightning Round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
Francois Lacombe. Hi Steve, do you think that the Steve and Stuffy series and its many endearing dog characters could have been subconsciously inspired by your fond memories of the one and only flesh and blood dog you ever owned? Yeah, probably. I'm sure that, I mean, my fondness for dogs in general, I'm sure informs the characters of Stuffy and Toby and Millicent and Hans. Yeah, probably Star, my dog that I had. But I just love dogs in general. So it's probably that. Adrian Williams, while we were talking about your An Atheist Read series, are you planning on doing more from Ray Comfort? I wonder because I worry about your blood pressure. No more from Ray on the docket right now. No more from Ray for the foreseeable future. I am going to do a presuppositionalist a little bit later this year, though, so worry about my blood pressure for that. Dangerously Talented. Does Stuffy object when you impersonate him? I really don't know, actually. Let me ask him. Hey, Stuffy, do you care if I impersonate you?
Yes, please don't.
He doesn't care. Sabrina Loizides Meredith. Hey, Steve, what's your favorite sci-fi or fantasy novel? Oh, I Am Legend. The original I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. Ben, why do you have an old-style phone on your stack of books? Is it hooked up or just for decoration? Yeah, there is an old-style phone back there. I don't think you can see it now because the graphic on the side here is obscuring it, but there's a phone back there that you can see. It's a real phone. It's hooked up. It's hooked up to a magic jack. It's not hooked up to a conventional telephone line. But yeah, it works. It's a working phone. It's my phone. Pull it out, I said no. Lightning round. Other than black racism, have you experienced seeing racism towards Hispanics, Middle Eastern, Native Americans, Asians, etc.? Got any stories? I have personally experienced a lot of racism towards Hispanics than any other race. Anyways, yeah, that's it. Yeah, I've never seen personally a Hispanic person like mistreated because of racism, but racist language is directed toward Hispanics all the time. That I have heard. It's very common. Casual racism, casual racism is all over the place where I live, and it's mostly directed toward black folks, but it's a very healthy portion of it goes toward Hispanic folks as well, and toward people from the Middle East, especially right after 9/11. There was a lot of that, and there's still a lot of residual sort of anger and fear toward Middle Eastern looking people. Yeah, definitely, I have seen it myself. Rob Boss, what would you say the difference is between agnosticism and pragmatic atheism? Are they inherently the same? I think they wind up with, they leave you at a similar place philosophically. You end up like, if we imagine people standing on their viewpoint, the pragmatic atheist and the agnostic are like right next to each other. I think the difference is one of orientation, where a pragmatic atheist is someone who says that it doesn't matter whether God exists or not. It's someone that they're saying that they don't really care whether God exists. An agnostic is saying they don't know whether God exists. So that would be the distinction. It's not caring versus not knowing. Patrick Dodds. Steve, of the two Fox-created sketch comedy series, which do you prefer, In Living Color or Mad TV? Also, could you give your brief thoughts on the one you didn't pick? Oh, In Living Color was the best one for me. In Living Color was like appointment TV while it was on. I watched it for its entire run, even toward the end when it wasn't nearly as funny as it was in the beginning. I loved In Living Color. I watched Mad TV for about the first season or two, and then I just got bored with it and stopped watching it. I just didn't think it was that great. And occasionally I would kind of dip back into it from time to time just to see what was going on, and I just never thought it was that funny. Think skeptically. Lightning round question. Why don't you ever mention that you'll be working with your best friend besides your awesome wife, Stephanie? Huh, big man? Yes, I will be working very soon with my best friend besides my awesome wife, Stephanie. We're going to do some videos together, both on my channel and elsewhere, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do it soon, relatively soon, in the next couple of months probably, and it's going to be great. So now you all know, and now I've told everybody, and now the cat's out of the bag, so there won't be any surprises. Thanks a lot, Steph, for forcing me to ruin the surprise. Rodney Gutowski. Steve, what do you think of the Shroud of Turin? Real or fake? Was the carbon dating wrong or accurate? Thanks. Oh, it's fake. I think the carbon dating, the carbon dating put it somewhere like originating in like the 14th century, didn't it? The 12th or the 13th, or somewhere back there. Definitely not back to the time of Christ. It's a fake. And even if it did date back to the time of Christ, how do you explain the image? I mean, unless you're just going to say it was Jesus magic. If you take the possibility of just generic, unspecified, unknown Jesus magic off the list of explanations, then how the fuck did that image get on the shroud? Yeah, it's a fake. It's a fake. It's an obvious fake. That's the last question. Hey, here's a shout out to end the video. Someone who is not a fake, obvious or otherwise, who is actually a really awesome YouTuber. A couple of awesome YouTubers, actually. It's a shout out going to two people with one YouTube channel, one awesome show on a YouTube channel. The shout out goes to Secular Startup with Gordon and Kelley. I actually found this channel just last week. I was watching Atheist Analysis's special video on International Women's Day about women, featuring women who are active in the atheist community, and Stephanie Gatormson, Think Skeptically, who just asked a question in the lightning round, was one of those featured on the video. And also featured was Kelley from Secular Startup with Gordon and Kelley. And she talked about her channel, and I checked it out, and she and Gordon have an awesome show, a really cool project. It's a monthly series of videos dedicated to offering advice and tips for how to start and promote and fundraise for your secular student organization. If you're in college and you're an atheist and you want to start a secular student organization, or you already have one and you're looking for ways to grow it and build it and make it better, this is an awesome resource. Both Gordon and Kelley are veterans of the Secular Student Alliance. They have had their own secular groups in the past. They know what they're talking about, and they have advice on all sorts of practical stuff: how to raise money, how to invite guests, how to schedule events, how to promote your group, how to organize your group. A new video every month on some subject related to secular organizing on campus. It is so cool, and such a very a specific, very useful resource for those of you who are students and who want to do something like this. So I would highly recommend checking out Secular Startup with Gordon and Kelley. Highly recommend it. Well, that's it for me, everybody. I am out of here. But before I go, I want to remind you to please leave a comment on this video to ask me your question for next time. Because if you don't ask, I can't do these videos. You have to ask. It's implied in the title. And you can ask me anything about anything. Nothing is too serious, nothing is too silly, and I will answer as many of them as I possibly can in the next video. So until then, take care, everybody.